Hi guys, welcome back to Book Break. I'm Aoife from booktube channel Fred Weasley Died Laughing, and I am here to talk about some amazing Irish writers that I think everybody should be reading to help celebrate St. Patrick's Day. I have a bunch of amazing Irish writers here to talk about, and I'm really excited to let you guys know about some of these amazing books. So the first Irish writer I want to talk about is someone who is very, very well known, is someone who I studied myself in school, and that is the poet W.B. Yeats. I have a beautiful edition here of the collected poetry of W.B. Yeats, and a few of these are some of my favourite poems I have ever read. A few more I still have yet to read. He has such an amazing collection of work, and there's some poetry here that is just so beautiful and really, really speaks to me. And I feel like there's probably a poem in here for everyone. One of the things I love about Yeats is the fact that he is able to write poetry about so many different situations. He has written poetry about Irish history. He has poems about some Irish heroes, some Irish leaders. He has poetry about the First World War. And then he also has poetries just about love and family life, and he also has written a beautiful poetry around fairies and changelings. One of my favourite poems is The Stolen Child, which I think has just one of the most beautiful lines in poetry, which is, "Come away, O human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than you can understand." And I just adore those lines, and that is probably my favourite poem of W.B. Yeats. But as I said, I think he is just such an amazing collection of work, and I think everyone there's a poem here for everyone. Another Irish writer I want to talk about is Emma Donoghue, and most people will know Emma Donoghue from Room, which was made into a movie that won an Academy Award. Brie Larson won the Academy Award for Best Actress when she was the mother in Room, and Room is more of there's some thriller aspects to it, there is some mystery around it, but one of the most amazing things about Room, and one of the most unusual things, is that the entire book is told through the voice of a 5-year-old child. It makes it for a really, really interesting read, and it's not one that I've seen repeated in other books, and I just feel that Emma Donoghue just did it so well in this book and really, really kept my attention throughout the book. One of my favourite things about Emma Donoghue's writing is the fact that every single book I have picked up from her has been a little bit different. So one of my all-time favourite books is also an Emma Donoghue book, and that is Frog Music. And Frog Music is based in San Francisco in 1876, and it is through a point in time when the smallpox epidemic has kind of taken control of the city. This book follows the relationship between these two women who meet. One of them is an ex-circus star, and it is just a very, very interesting look into the relationship, the time that this is set, which is in this really interesting point within the city. There is this smallpox epidemic going on. There is this kind of heightened fear among all the characters that they could contract it. Yet at the same time, they are just living every day kind of to their full. And, you know, some things were pretty hard at the time if you did not have much money. And we are just seeing how these characters live. We are seeing the relationships they form. It is probably my favourite Emma Donoghue book. But I did also recently read Kissing the Witch, which is a bunch of short stories, all centred around kind of fairy tale retellings that Emma Donoghue also wrote. It's one of my favourite short story collections I have read, and I just found these really, really interesting, really original reimaginings of fairy tales. A lot of them show the woman herself that is the main character in this fairy tale kind of becoming her own hero in a way. There is no kind of waiting around for the knight in shining armour in these stories. In these stories, I feel like the women all kind of take control of their own destiny, and each story kind of there's a line in between each story where they all kind of run into each other, and there is connections between all the stories and all the characters. And another Irish writer that most people will probably have heard of, but I don't know if a lot of people have read, is John Banville. John Banville has written quite a collection of work. This one, Dr. Copernicus, is about a scientist, and this is kind of a novelised version of this scientist's life, which I absolutely love. I love reading novels about real people in history. I just love an author kind of being able to have a little bit of fun imagining these people's lives, especially when they're like, you know, centuries before our time. And I love historical fiction anyway, but I just love historical fiction based around real people. John Banville also writes under a pseudonym Benjamin Black, where he writes a crime series based around this detective called Quirk, so a lot of people might have heard from that as well, as that was adapted into a TV show with Gabriel Byrne. Myself have gone to talks with John Banville, and he is just a really, really interesting person. If anyone ever has a chance of hearing him talk about his writing process and how he comes up with ideas and his characters, I would 100% urge you to do so, because he is a very interesting writer. He's a very talented person, and just hearing about how he's able to come up with the stories, how he imagines his characters, and the characters he most identifies with is really interesting. Another Irish writer a lot of people have probably heard of is Colin Tobin, who wrote Brooklyn, which was also a Oscar nominated movie with Saoirse Ronan, the Irish actress Saoirse Ronan. As you can see here, this is the movie cover of the book. I really, really enjoyed Brooklyn. Brooklyn is quite a quiet story, and I think this is what Colin Tobin is really excels at, is he writes these amazing stories about these small lives with a lot of meaning behind them. He writes a lot about characters who might be going on a journey or kind of, you know, trying to discover who they are, such as In the South, which is about a woman who travels to Spain and enters a romantic relationship. And then he also writes about kind of these smaller journeys as well with people like Nora Webster, who is a widow. She has to kind of find a way of starting over after she loses her husband and needs to continue to look after her family. About just ordinary people in ordinary lives, but the tales themselves are extremely beautiful and are just really nice to be able to read and connect with the characters. Another fabulous Irish writer is Louise ONeill, who excels at writing about real issues in society, as she has done with both Asking for It and Almost Love. Louise ONeill is excellent at being able to take some really tough topics and bring them into a book and make them the main focus of a book. The way of writing that makes these topics really accessible to a lot of people. So she has kind of taken on toxic relationships in Almost Love, and then in Asking for It she takes on rape culture and victim blaming. And they're very tough books to read because she makes these characters, a lot of her characters are extremely dislikable characters, which I find really interesting about her writing. But at the same time, a reader is able to see themselves in these characters. Even though these characters are not nice, you're able to see yourself in the characters. You're able to see yourself whether it is in the actions or things that they're going through. And I have known a lot of people who've identified with a lot of things that Louise ONeill has written about, and has really helped people understand things that they themselves have gone through. And as I said, it's just, she's a really powerful way of writing where she's able to bring these really tough subjects to life, and she's able to bring them in a way that's very accessible for a lot of people to read. And the last writer I want to talk about today is Liz Nugent, who has written some amazing thrillers. She's written Skin Deep, Lying in Wait, and she also has another book called Unraveling Oliver. And one of the things I love about Liz Nugent is she makes these despicable characters that you just love to hate. Her thrillers they seem almost domestic based, but they kind of also end up reaching outside of the home at some points as well. And with some characters you do end up going on quite a journey, such as in Cordelia in Skin Deep. Liz Nugent has a really great way of writing books where you're immediately just drawn into the story, and you need to know about these characters, you need to know what makes them so despicable, and she has this really great way of just bringing you on a journey with these characters. Her books are quite intense, but at the same time one of the reasons they're intense is not because of any action scenes that happen in them, but it's the slow reveal of the characters' minds and how you kind of start figuring out how they think and what they're going to do next. I love her writing. I love waiting to see what next she's going to come out with, because Liz Nugent is definitely going to be someone who's always going to end up on my bookshelf. So those are some of my favourite Irish writers that I hope people will be encouraged to pick up after watching this video. I hope you enjoy all your books, and happy St. Patrick's Day. Bye!